The bridge of the Galactic Council's flagship Eternal Harmony hummed with nervous energy. Admiral Zex Thoras focused on the massive view screen showing the edge of the Sol system. Her crystalline skin shimmered with anxiety patterns that her crew had learned to recognize over decades of service. "Ma'am," called out Lieutenant Cree from the sensor station, his tentacles dancing across the controls. "We're picking up something unusual. The humans. ... They're sending only one ship to meet us." Admiral Zex Thora's mandibles clicked in confusion. The Galactic Council had arrived with a fleet of 200 vessels, the standard diplomatic escort for first contact with a new species. Every civilization they'd encountered had responded with their own impressive display of naval power. It was the universal language of respect and strength. "One ship," she repeated, her voice carrying across the bridge. "Are you certain, Lieutenant?" "Confirmed." "Admiral, our long-range sensors show a single human vessel approaching from the inner system. It's moving very slowly." The Admiral's aide, a floating gas being named Wisp, drifted closer. "Perhaps they're testing us? Or maybe they don't understand proper diplomatic protocol?" Admiral Zex Thera had spent her entire career studying alien cultures. She'd made first contact with 17 different species, each time following the same careful dance of power and respect. The Korthok had sent 300 warships. The Velen had dispatched their entire stellar navy. Even the peaceful Gentle Ones had shown up with 50 vessels loaded with defensive systems. But one ship? From a species that had just achieved faster-than-light travel? It seemed almost insulting. "Tactical analysis, Commander Grix," she ordered. Heavily armored insectoid at the weapons station buzzed his response. "Admiral, the human vessel appears to be ... primitive. Our sensors detect basic fusion engines, simple energy shields, and what looks like projectile weapons. Nothing that should concern our fleet. Size comparison? Roughly equivalent to one of our destroyer-class vessels. Perhaps 800 meters in length?" Admiral Zex Thara, eyes narrowed. Their flagship alone was over 3 kilometers long, and it was just one ship in a fleet that could glass a planet. Wait. What were these humans thinking? Open a communication channel when they're in range, she decided. Let's see what they have to say for themselves. The next hour passed in tense silence. The human ship continued its steady approach, maintaining a perfectly straight course toward the Council fleet. No evasive maneuvers, no escort fighters, no visible weapon systems charging. Just one small, unremarkable vessel against 200. Of the galaxy's most advanced warships, communication range achieved, announced the communications officer. The humans are hailing us on standard frequencies. On screen. The view screen flickered, and suddenly, Admiral Zex Thora found herself looking at a creature unlike any she'd encountered before. The human was bipedal, covered in dark skin, with short black hair and intense brown eyes. It wore what appeared to be a simple uniform, navy blue with small metal insignia. "Greetings," the human said, its voice surprisingly calm. "I am Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Force vessel Defiance. I come as a representative of humanity to meet with the Galactic Council." Admiral Zex Thera studied the human carefully. Captain Chen appeared young by most species standards, but there was something in her eyes, a depth that spoke of experience far beyond her apparent years. "I am Admiral Zex Thera of the Galactic Council," she replied, activating the universal translator. "We welcome humanity to the galactic community. However, I must ask, where is the rest of your fleet? Surely you don't intend to conduct first contact negotiations with a single vessel?" Captain Chen's lips curved upward in what the translator identified as a smile. "Admiral, with respect, one ship is all we need. The Defiance is fully capable of representing humanity's interests." A ripple of astonishment passed through the bridge crew. Commander Grix's mandibles clicked rapidly, the insectoid equivalent of nervous laughter. "Admiral," he whispered, "either these humans are incredibly naive, or ... or what, Commander? Or they know something we don't." Admiral Zex Thera felt a chill run through her crystalline structure. In all her years of first contact protocols, she'd learned that the most dangerous opponents were those who appeared weakest. but surely not. Humans had barely mastered interstellar travel. Their technology was centuries behind the Council's. "Captain Chen," she said carefully, "perhaps you'd be willing to come aboard our flagship for formal negotiations. We have prepared accommodations suitable for carbon-based life forms. I appreciate the offer, Admiral, but I think it would be better if you came aboard the Defiance. We have something to show you that might change your perspective on these negotiations." The bridge fell silent. In the entire history of galactic diplomacy, no newly contacted species had ever invited the Council representatives aboard their vessels. It was simply not done. The Council's ships were larger, more advanced, and more secure. That's highly irregular, Captain, I understand, Admiral. But I think you'll find that humanity doesn't always follow the expected patterns. We'd like to demonstrate something that words cannot adequately describe. Admiral Zexthora's 4 eyes met those of her senior staff. She could see the same mixture of curiosity and concern reflected in their expressions. This was either a historic opportunity or a catastrophic mistake in the making. "Very well, Captain Chen. I'll bring a small diplomatic party aboard your vessel. But I warn you, any hostile action against Council representatives will be met with overwhelming force." "Captain," Chen's smile widened. "Admiral, I think you'll find that hostility is the last thing on our minds. In fact, I believe this meeting will mark the beginning of a very productive relationship between humanity and the Galactic Council." As the communication ended, Admiral Zexthora couldn't shake the feeling that she was walking into something far more complex than a simple first contact scenario. The human captain's confidence was unsettling, especially given the vast disparity in their respective fleets. "Prepare the diplomatic shuttle," she ordered, "and keep our weapon systems on standby. Something about this doesn't feel right." Little did she know, her instincts were absolutely correct. Chapter 2. Aboard the Defiance, the diplomatic shuttle, peaceful convergence detached from the massive Council flagship and began its journey toward the human vessel. Admiral Zexthera sat in the passenger compartment alongside her aide Wisp, Commander Grix, and Dr. Yilin, the Council's leading xenobiologist. "I've been analyzing the human ship during our approach," Dr. Yilin reported, her reptilian features focused on a handheld scanner. "The power signatures are ... unusual. Their fusion reactors are generating far more energy than should be possible with their apparent technology level." "Explain," Admiral Zexthera said. "Based on our initial scans, their ship should be producing maybe 10% of the energy we're detecting. Either our sensors are malfunctioning, or they're using some kind of power source we don't recognize." "A commander," Grix buzzed thoughtfully, "could be running multiple reactors. Some species overcompensate for technological limitations by brute-forcing their power requirements." As they drew closer to the Defiance, the human vessel filled their viewports. What had seemed small and primitive from a distance now revealed itself to be surprisingly elegant. The ship's hull was a dark gray metal that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Strange geometric patterns were etched into the surface, and there were no visible weapon ports or defensive systems. "Beautiful," Wisp observed, his gaseous form shimmering with appreciation. "It's very different from our designs, but there's something ... purposeful about it." The shuttle docked with a soft mechanical thud, and the airlock cycled open. Captain Chen was waiting for them on the other side, now accompanied by 2 other humans. One was a tall, pale-skinned man with graying hair and intense blue eyes, wearing what appeared to be a technical uniform. The other was a shorter woman, with dark skin and an expression of barely contained excitement. "Admiral Zexthara," Captain Chen said, stepping forward. "Welcome aboard the Defiance. I'd like you to meet Dr. Marcus Webb, our Chief Science Officer, and Commander Lisa Park, our engineering specialists." The formal introductions were exchanged, and Admiral Zexthera found herself impressed by the humans' courtesy and professionalism. Whatever else they might be, they clearly understood diplomatic protocol. "Before we begin formal negotiations," Captain Chen continued, "I'd like to show you something that will help you understand humanity's place in the galactic community." She led them through corridors that were surprisingly spacious and well-lit. The walls were lined with displays showing star maps, technical readouts, and what appeared to be historical images of Earth. Admiral Zexthara noticed that the crew members they passed seemed remarkably calm and confident, given that they were hosting representatives of a vastly superior military force. "Captain," she said as they walked, "I must admit, your crew seems unusually relaxed. Most species are somewhat intimidated when first encountering the Council fleet." Dr. Webb chuckled, a sound that the translator rendered as mild amusement. "Admiral, you'll understand our perspective in just a moment. Here we are." They had arrived at what appeared to be the ship's main observation deck. The room was dominated by a massive transparent wall that offered a spectacular view of space. The Council fleet was visible in the distance, its hundreds of ships arranged in perfect formation. "Impressive sight," Captain Chen said, following their gaze. 200 vessels, representing the combined might of 17 different species, the pinnacle of galactic civilization. "Indeed," Admiral Zexthara replied, unsure where this was leading. "Dr. Webb, would you please explain to our guests what they're looking at?" The science officer stepped forward, his expression becoming serious. "Admiral, what you're seeing is not actually the Council fleet. I beg your pardon. Those ships you're looking at, they're holographic projections. The real Council fleet is currently held in a temporal stasis field approximately 50,000 kilometers from your apparent position." Admiral Zexthora's four eyes widened in shock. "It's impossible. Our sensors would detect any kind of holographic manipulation." "Under normal circumstances, yes," Dr. Webb agreed. "But you're not dealing with normal circumstances, Commander." "Park, would you care to demonstrate?" The engineering officer stepped up to a control panel and made a series of adjustments. Suddenly, the view outside changed dramatically. The Council fleet flickered and vanished, replaced by empty space. Then, in the distance, they could see the real fleet, motionless, caught in a shimmering field of energy. "How?" Admiral Zexthara whispered. "The same way we've been masking our true nature since you entered the Sol system," Captain Chen replied. "Admiral, I need you to understand something. Humanity didn't just achieve faster-than-light travel. We've been exploring the galaxy for over 2 centuries, but that's impossible. Our surveys of this system showed a primitive civilization barely capable of interplanetary travel. Because that's what we wanted you to see," Dr. Webb explained. "We've been monitoring galactic civilization for a very long time. You know about the Council, about the various species and their politics, about the delicate balance of power that keeps the peace." Commander Grix's mandibles clicked frantically. "You're saying you've been spying on us?" "You prefer the term observing," Captain Chen said diplomatically. "We needed to understand what we were dealing with before making contact, and what we found concerned us." Admiral Zexthara felt her world shifting beneath her feet. "Explain." "The Galactic Council maintains peace through a careful balance of power," Dr. Webb continued. "No single species is allowed to become too dominant. New civilizations are carefully integrated into the existing structure, their development guided and controlled. It's a stable system, but it's also stagnant." "Stagnant?" Wisp asked, his gaseous form rippling with confusion. "When was the last time any Council species made a significant technological breakthrough?" Captain Chen asked. "When was the last time someone developed a new form of faster-than-light travel, or discovered a new source of energy, or found a solution to one of the galaxy's major problems?" The Council representatives exchanged glances. It was true technological progress had slowed significantly since the formation of the Council, but that was the price of peace and stability. "You're suggesting that our system is flawed?" Admiral Zexthara asked. "We're suggesting that it's limiting," Dr. Webb replied. "Species that might have the potential to solve major galactic problems are instead guided into becoming minor players in the existing structure. Innovation is discouraged in favor of stability. And you think humanity's different?" "Well," Captain Chen smiled again, but this time there was no warmth in it. "Admiral, let me show you just how different we are." She walked to another control panel and activated a new display. The observation deck's walls became transparent, offering a 360-degree view of space around them. What they saw made Admiral Zexthara's blood run cold. The Defiance was not alone. Surrounding it, previously invisible to all sensors, were dozens of other human vessels. They were larger than the Defiance, and clearly more advanced. Some appeared to be built using technologies that shouldn't exist. incorporating materials and design principles that defied known physics. Meet the real human defense force, Captain Chen said quietly. What you're seeing is just the local patrol group. We have ships like these in every major system in the galaxy. We've been watching, learning, and preparing for this moment for a very long time. Preparing for what? Admiral Zexthera asked, though she feared she already knew the answer. For the day when humanity takes its rightful place in galactic civilization, not as a minor member of the Council, but as the species that finally breaks the cycle of stagnation and leads the galaxy into a new age of exploration and discovery. The implications hit Admiral Zexthera like a physical blow. Humanity hadn't just achieved faster-than-light travel, they had surpassed every other species in the galaxy. The primitive civilization they thought they were meeting was actually the most advanced military force in known space. You're talking about conquest? She said. We're talking about evolution, Captain Chen corrected. The galaxy has been stuck in the same patterns for millennia. It's time for something new. As the full magnitude of the situation became clear, Admiral Zexthera realized that everything she thought she knew about First Contact, about humanity, and about the balance of power in the galaxy had just been turned upside down. The question was, what did the humans intend to do with their overwhelming advantage? Chapter 3. The demonstration. Admiral Zexthera stared at the fleet of human vessels surrounding them, her mind racing to process the implications. The ships were unlike anything in the Council's databases, sleek, predatory forms that seemed to bend light around them. Some appeared to be constructed from materials that her eyes couldn't quite focus on, as if they existed partially outside normal space. She said finally, if you have this kind of technology, this kind of power, why reveal it now? Why not simply conquer the galaxy if that's your intention? Captain Chen walked to the center of the observation deck, her hands clasped behind her back. Because conquest isn't our goal, Admiral. We're not interested in ruling over other species. We're interested in something far more valuable, which is partnership. True partnership, not the carefully managed integration that the Council offers new species. Dr. Webb stepped forward, activating a holographic display that showed the galactic map. Admiral, look at this objectively. The Council has maintained peace for 3,000 years, yes, but at what cost? Technological advancement has slowed to a crawl. Species that show too much innovation are guided toward more stable paths. The galaxy has become risk-averse to the point of stagnation. Commander Grix buzzed angrily. The Council system has prevented countless wars. Billions of lives have been saved, and billions more have been limited to lives far smaller than their potential, Dr. Webb replied. What diseases might have been cured? What scientific breakthroughs might have been made? What wonders might have been discovered if innovation hadn't been systematically discouraged? Admiral Zexthera felt a chill of recognition. In her more honest moments, she had wondered the same things. The Council maintained peace through careful management of power dynamics. But that management often came at the cost of genuine progress. So, what are you proposing? She asked. A demonstration, Captain Chen said. The thing that will show you what's possible when species are allowed to reach their full potential. She gestured to Commander Park, who began working at a control station. We're going to solve a problem that the Council has been struggling with for over a century. What problem? The void storms in the Kepler sector. Admiral Zexthera's eyes widened. The void storms were a mysterious phenomenon that had been devastating shipping lanes and colonies for decades. They appeared without warning, consumed everything in their path, and left behind regions of space where the laws of physics seemed to break down. The Council's best scientists had been unable to even determine their cause, let alone find a solution. That's impossible. Dr. Yilin spoke up for the first time. We've had our most advanced research teams working on the void storm problem for generations. There's no known technology that can affect them, known to the Council, Dr. Webb corrected. But we've had the advantage of observing the galaxy from the outside. Sometimes fresh perspective is exactly what's needed. The holographic display changed, showing detailed sensor readings from the Kepler sector. Admiral Zexthera recognized the data. She had seen similar reports hundreds of times. The storms appeared as areas of twisted space-time where matter and energy behaved in impossible ways. The Council has been approaching this problem backwards, Captain Chen explained. You've been trying to understand the storms by studying their effects. But the storms aren't natural phenomena, they're scars. Scars? Scars left by an ancient civilization that tried to manipulate fundamental forces beyond their understanding? The storms are essentially wounds in space-time that never healed properly. Dr. Webb manipulated the display, showing a three-dimensional model of the affected region. If you approach them as wounds rather than storms, the solution becomes clear. You don't fight a wound, you heal it. And you claim to know how to do this? We don't just know how we're going to do it. Right now. Captain Chen turned to the communications station. Signaled the Prometheus task force. Begin the Kepler operation. Admiral Zexthera watched in fascination as the human fleet began to move. Several of the larger vessels separated from the main group and activated what appeared to be some kind of faster-than-light drive unlike anything she had seen before. Instead of the usual energy buildup and sudden departure, these ships seemed to simply fade from existence. They're not jumping to hyperspace, she observed. What kind of drive system is that? We call it phase shifting, Commander Park explained. Instead of traveling through hyperspace, we temporarily shift our ships out of normal space-time. It's faster than traditional FTL, and it allows us to appear anywhere in the galaxy almost instantaneously. That should be impossible. The energy requirements alone would be impossible using traditional power sources, Dr. Webb agreed. But we've learned to tap into the quantum foam that underlies all of reality. It's infinite energy, as long as you know how to access it safely. The main display showed a real-time view of the Kepler sector transmitted from the human task force. Admiral Zexthera could see the familiar chaotic energy patterns of the void storms, massive regions of twisted space that had claimed dozens of ships over the years. Beginning harmonic resonance procedure, came a voice over the communications system. The human ships arranged themselves in a complex formation around the storms. Energy beams began to emanate from each vessel, but these weren't weapons. They were some kind of harmonic frequencies that interacted with the storm. Patterns in ways that made Admiral Zexthera's head spin. What we're doing, Dr. Webb explained, is essentially singing to the wounded space-time. The storms exist because the ancient civilization's experiments created standing wave patterns that reinforce themselves. By generating the exact opposite frequencies, we can cancel out those patterns and allow space-time to heal naturally. The display showed the effect in real time. Chaotic energy patterns of the storms began to calm their wild fluctuations, gradually settling into more stable configurations. As the minutes passed, the massive distortions that had plagued the sector for a century began to simply fade away. Impossible, Dr. Yilin whispered. The energy levels alone should have destroyed your ships. Only if you think in terms of brute force, Captain Chen replied. We're not overpowering the storms, we're convincing them to heal themselves. It's the difference between breaking down a door and finding the right key. Within an hour, the void storms were gone. The Kepler sector, which had been a no-go zone for decades, was now clear and safe for travel. The human ships had accomplished in 60 minutes what the combined scientific might of the Council had been unable to do in a century. This is just the beginning, Captain Chen said, turning back to the stunned Council representatives. Galaxy is full of problems that seem impossible because they're being approached from the wrong angle. The plague worlds in the Outer Rim, the time distortions around the ancient megastructures, the energy crisis affecting the inner systems, we have solutions for all of them. Admiral Zexthera felt the foundation of her worldview crumbling. Everything she thought she knew about technological limits, about the natural order of galactic civilization, had just been proven wrong. What do you want from us? She asked quietly. We want you to stop managing the galaxy and start helping it grow, Captain Chen replied. We want the Council to become a forum for cooperation and innovation instead of a mechanism for control and stagnation. And if we refuse, Captain Chen's expression became serious. Then we'll solve the galaxy's problems ourselves, and the Council will become irrelevant. We'd prefer partnership, Admiral, but we won't let bureaucracy stand in the way of progress. As Admiral Zexthera looked out at the human fleet, At the cleared Kepler sector, at the casual display of technology that surpassed everything her civilization had achieved, she realized that the galaxy was about to change, whether the Council stood still, wanted it to or not. The only question was whether they would be part of that change or swept aside by it. Chapter 4. The choice, the journey back to the Council flagship, passed in heavy silence. Admiral Zexthara sat in the diplomatic shuttle, staring out at the stars, while her mind churned through the implications of what she had witnessed. Beside her, her senior staff wore expressions of shock and confusion that mirrored her own feelings. Admiral. Wisp finally spoke, his gaseous form rippling with uncertainty. What are we going to tell the Council? Was the question that had been haunting her since they left the Defiance. How do you report that everything your civilization believes about technology, about power, about the natural order of the galaxy is wrong? How do you explain that a species you thought was primitive has been secretly observing and surpassing every other civilization for centuries? The truth, she said finally. However impossible it sounds, we tell them the truth. Commander Grix's mandibles clicked nervously. They'll never believe it. Even with the sensor records, even with the visual evidence, it's too far outside their understanding of what's possible. Then we'll have to make them understand, Admiral Zexthara replied. Because the alternative is to let the Council stumble blindly into a situation they're completely unprepared for. Dr. Yilin looked up from her scanner, her reptilian features creased with confusion. I've been analyzing the data we collected aboard the human ship. Their technology isn't just advanced, it's based on completely different principles than anything we know. It's as if they've discovered entirely new laws of physics, or old laws that we never understood properly. Admiral Zexthara mused. The humans mentioned that they've been observing galactic civilization for centuries. They've had time to study our mistakes, our limitations, our blind spots. As the shuttle docked with the flagship, Admiral Zexthara steeled herself for what was to come. The emergency session of the Council would be unlike anything in their history. She would be asking representatives of 17 different species to reconsider everything they thought they knew about their place in the universe. Council chamber aboard the Eternal Harmony was a marvel of diplomatic architecture. The circular room was designed to accommodate the various environmental needs of different species, atmospheric zones, gravity fields, and radiation shielding, all carefully balanced to ensure every representative could participate comfortably. As Admiral Zexthara entered, she saw the familiar faces of the galactic community's leadership. High Counselor Viridian of the Ethereal Collective, his energy-based form shimmering with curiosity. General Thrak of the Korvan Empire, his massive bulk filling an entire section of the chamber. Ambassador Silkway of the Gentle Ones, her delicate, crystalline structure reflecting the chamber's lights like a living prism. Admiral Zexthara, High Counselor Viridian's voice resonated directly in her mind through telepathic communication. Your report indicated urgent developments regarding the human first contact. What has happened? Admiral Zexthara took her position at the center of the chamber, feeling the weight of 17 civilizations' attention focused on her. Honored representatives, what I'm about to tell you will challenge everything we believe about galactic civilization. I ask that you hear me out completely before making any judgments. She activated the chamber's holographic display system and began to present the evidence they had gathered. The sensor readings from the human fleet, the recordings of the Void Storm resolution, the technical analysis of humanity's impossible technology. As the presentation continued, the chamber grew increasingly restless. Whispered conversations in a dozen different languages filled the air. Some representatives leaned forward with fascination, others drew back in alarm. You're asking us to believe, General Thrak rumbled, his voice like grinding stone, that a species we identified as barely spacefaring has somehow developed technology that surpasses our most advanced civilizations. I'm asking you to consider the evidence, Admiral Zexthara replied. The void storms in the Kepler sector are gone. They were eliminated in less than an hour using methods we don't understand. This isn't speculation, it's documented fact. Ambassador Silkway's crystalline form chimed softly, producing musical tones that the universal translator converted to speech. But why would they reveal this to us? If they truly have such overwhelming advantages, why not simply impose their will upon the galaxy? That's exactly what I asked them, Admiral Zexthora said. According to Captain Chen, they're not interested in conquest. They want partnership. They want to help solve the galaxy's problems and advance our collective understanding. At the cost of the Council's authority, High Counselor Viridian observed. If they can solve problems we cannot, if they can surpass our technology so easily, what need do the galactic species have for the Council system? It was the heart of the matter, and Admiral Zexthera knew it. The Council's power came from its role as mediator, protector, and guide for galactic civilization. If humanity could provide all of those functions more effectively, the Council's 3,000-year reign would come to an end. Perhaps, she said carefully, that wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing. The chamber erupted in protests and arguments. Representatives jumped to their feet, energy beings flared with indignation, and the translator system struggled to keep up with the cacophony of outraged voices. Order, Admiral Zexthera called out, her voice cutting through the chaos. Not suggesting we abandon everything we've built. I'm suggesting we consider whether we've built it for the right reasons. She activated another display showing galactic development statistics over the past millennium. Look at these trends. Innovation has slowed dramatically since the Council system was established. Scientific breakthroughs happen at a fraction of the rate they did during the pre-Council era. We've achieved stability, yes, but at the cost of progress. Stability has prevented wars, General Thrak argued. It has saved countless lives. And how many lives might have been saved if we had continued advancing medically? How many disasters might have been prevented if we had continued developing new technologies? How many species might have thrived if they hadn't been guided into carefully managed roles in the existing system? Ambassador Silkway's chimes grew softer, more thoughtful. You're suggesting that our system of careful management has been holding back galactic development? I'm suggesting that the humans may be right when they say we've become risk-averse to the point of stagnation. We've been so focused on maintaining the status quo that we've forgotten how to imagine something better. High Counselor Viridian's energy form pulsed with consideration. Even if we accept your assessment, Admiral, what are you proposing we do? The humans have made it clear that they will proceed with or without our cooperation. Admiral Zexthera took a deep breath. I propose we choose cooperation. I propose we work with humanity to establish a new framework for galactic civilization, one that prioritizes growth and discovery over stability and control. You're talking about revolution, General Thrak said, his voice dangerously low. Talking about evolution, Admiral Zexthora replied, echoing Captain Chen's words. The galaxy is going to change whether we want it to or not. The question is whether we'll be part of that change or casualties of it. The debate that followed lasted for hours. Some representatives argued for immediate military action against the human threat. Others suggested attempting to negotiate. From a position of strength, few like Ambassador Silkway seemed genuinely intrigued by the possibilities that human partnership might offer. Finally, High Counselor Viridian called for order. We need time to consider these developments. Admiral Zexthera, you will return to the human vessel and inform them that the Council requires 48 hours to deliberate. We will provide our response at that time. As the session ended and the representatives began to file out, Admiral Zexthara felt a mixture of relief and apprehension. She had planted the seeds of change, but whether they would grow into something beneficial or destructive remained to be seen. The next 48 hours would determine not just the fate of the Galactic Council, but the future of civilization itself. Epilogue. A new Dawn Captain, Sarah Chen, stood on the observation deck of the Defiance. Watching the distant lights of the Council fleet, it had been exactly 48 hours since Admiral Zexthera's return to the flagship, and the scheduled response time was approaching. Any word from our monitoring stations? She asked Dr. Webb, who was studying a tablet filled with intercepted communications data. The Council is deeply divided, he reported. About half the representatives seem to be leaning toward cooperation, while the other half are advocating for various forms of resistance. The military faction is pushing for a preemptive strike, despite the obvious futility of such an action. Commander Park looked up from her engineering station. Speaking of which, our defensive systems are detecting increased energy signatures from several Council vessels. They're powering up weapon systems, just in case. Captain Chen nodded. She had expected this. Fear was a natural response to having your worldview completely overturned. The question was whether wisdom would prevail over fear when the final decision was made. Captain, the communications officer called out. We're receiving a transmission from the Council flagship. Admiral Zexara is requesting a secure channel. Put her through. The main display activated, showing Admiral Zexara's familiar crystalline features. But something had changed in her expression. There was a determination there that hadn't been present before. Captain Chen, she said without preamble, the Council has reached a decision. I'm listening. By a vote of 9-8, we have chosen to accept your proposal for partnership. However, this decision comes with conditions. Captain Chen felt a surge of cautious optimism. What conditions? First, humanity must prove that your intentions are genuinely peaceful. We want to see concrete evidence that you're committed to cooperation rather than domination. That can be arranged. Else, second, the transition to a new galactic framework must be gradual. We cannot simply dismantle 3,000 years of civilization overnight. The species of the galaxy need time to adapt to new realities. Understood. And we're not interested in creating chaos. We want to build something better. A third. Admiral Zexthara continued. We want full disclosure of your capabilities and intentions. No more secrets, no more hidden fleets, no more mysterious technologies. If we're going to be partners, we need to trust each other completely. Captain Chen considered this carefully. Full disclosure would mean revealing the true extent of humanity's expansion, their advanced technologies, and their long-term plans. For galactic development, it was a risk, but one that genuine partnership would require. Agreed, she said finally. Admiral, I think this is the beginning of something remarkable. Hope you're right, Captain, because if you're wrong, if humanity's true intentions are anything other than what you've claimed, the consequences will be catastrophic for all of us. I understand the stakes, Admiral. I also understand the potential. Together, our species can accomplish things that neither could achieve alone. Over the following weeks, the real work began. Human technical specialists were exchanged with Council scientists. Joint research projects were established to tackle the galaxy's most pressing problems. The energy crisis affecting the inner systems was resolved using human quantum foam technology. The plague worlds were cleansed using advanced biotechnology that had been developed during humanity's hidden expansion. Each success built trust and demonstrated that humanity's promises were genuine. The feared conquest never materialized. Instead, a new era of cooperation and discovery began to emerge. Admiral Zexara found herself working closely with Captain Chen and her team, helping to design new institutions that would replace the old Council system. The process was complex and sometimes contentious, but gradually a new framework began to take shape. The Galactic Innovation Alliance, as it came to be known, was fundamentally different from the old Council system. Instead of managing and limiting technological development, it actively encouraged innovation and risk-taking. Instead of maintaining rigid hierarchies based on military power, it created partnerships based on complementary strengths and shared goals. But perhaps the most significant change was philosophical. Galaxy began to think not in terms of maintaining stability, but in terms of unlimited potential. Species that had been stagnant for centuries suddenly found themselves pushing the boundaries of what they thought pause. Sibel, the ethereal collective, working with human quantum physicists, developed new forms of faster-than-light communication that allowed instantaneous contact across galactic distances. The Corvin Empire's engineering expertise, combined with human materials science, produced construction techniques that made previously impossible megaprojects feasible. The Gentle One's mastery of biological systems enhanced by human biotechnology, led to breakthroughs in medicine that extended lifespans and eliminated diseases across dozens of species. 6 months after first contact, Admiral Zexara stood, once again in an observation deck, but this time it was aboard New Horizons, the first joint human council vessel. The ship itself was a marvel of cooperative engineering, incorporating the best technologies and design philosophies from multiple species. Captain Chen joined her at the viewing port, both of them watching as construction began on the first of the new Innovation Center's massive research stations that would be distributed throughout the galaxy to facilitate collaborative development. "Do you ever regret it?" Captain Chen asked quietly, choosing change over stability. Admiral Zexthara's crystalline skin shimmered with patterns that indicated deep contemplation. "I regret that it took us 3,000 years to realize that stability without growth is just another form of decay," she said. "I regret the discoveries that were never made, the problems that went unsolved, the potential that was never realized. Not the choice itself? Never the choice itself. Look around us, Captain. In 6 months, we've accomplished more than the galaxy had in the previous century. That's not just human achievement, right? That's what becomes possible when different species work together toward common goals instead of competing for limited resources." As if to emphasize her point, a communication came through from the Kepler sector. The region that had been devastated by void storms for over a century was now home to the galaxy's most advanced research facility, studying the fundamental nature of space-time itself. What had once been a problem was now an opportunity for discovery. Admiral Zexthara, to the bridge, came an announcement over the ship's communication system. "We're receiving priority communications from the Outer Rim territories." They made their way to the bridge, where they found the usual mix of human and alien crew members working together with an efficiency that would have been impossible under the old system. The main display showed a star map of the galaxy's outer rim, with several systems highlighted in urgent colors. "Report," Admiral Zexthara ordered. "We're getting distress signals from the frontier colonies," reported the communications officer, a young human named Lieutenant Torres. "Something's happening out there that's got them completely confused." Captain Chen frowned. "What kind of distress?" "That's just it. They're not in danger. They're reporting. Well, they're reporting first contact with something they can't identify. Something that doesn't match any known species in our databases." Admiral Zexthara felt a familiar chill of anticipation. "Show me the data." The main display changed to show sensor readings from the outer rim. What they saw was impossible according to everything they knew about galactic civilization. The energy signatures were unlike anything in their records, not just different, but operating according to principles that seemed to defy known physics. Could it be another species like humanity? Admiral Zexthara wondered aloud. Another civilization that's been developing in secret? Dr. Webb, who had been studying the data, looked up with an expression of excitement and concern. "It's possible. But if so, their technology is even more advanced than ours. These energy patterns suggest they're manipulating fundamental forces we haven't even theorized about yet." Captain Chen activated the ship's priority communication system. "All Alliance vessels. This is Captain Chen aboard New Horizons. We have a developing situation in the Outer Rim that requires immediate investigation. Assemble a joint task force and prepare for potential first contact with an unknown civilization." As the crew began preparations for what might be another historic first contact, Admiral Zexthara couldn't help but smile. 6 months ago, such a situation would have been approached with fear and caution, the primary goal being to maintain existing power structures. Now, the galaxy's response was one of curiosity and excitement about the possibilities that lay ahead. "You know," she said to Captain Chen, "I'm beginning to understand why humanity was so confident when you arrived with just one ship." "Oh?" "Us." "That because you weren't thinking about the encounter in terms of military superiority or political advantage? You were thinking about it in terms of potential. What could be accomplished if 2 different civilizations chose to work together, instead of against each other?" Captain Chen nodded. "That's the real secret, Admiral. It was never about our technology or our hidden fleets. It was about approaching problems with the assumption that there's always a better solution if you're willing to think creatively and work cooperatively. The New Horizons began its journey toward the outer rim, toward whatever new mystery awaited them there. Both officers knew that they were no longer just representatives of their individual species. They were pioneers of a new kind of galactic civilization, one that saw every challenge as an opportunity, every difference as a strength, and every encounter as a chance to become something greater than they had been before. The galaxy was vast and full of wonders they had yet to discover. But for the first time in millennia, they were approaching those wonders not with fear or caution, but with the excitement of explorers who knew that the best discoveries lay just beyond the horizon. Behind them, combined fleets of the Alliance, followed not as conquerors or managers, but as partners in the greatest adventure the galaxy had ever known. And ahead of them, in the darkness between the stars, new civilizations and new possibilities waited to be discovered. The age of stagnation was over. The age of infinite potential had begun.